Rooms, you said. Rooms, okay. Like dining rooms or rugs? Those are the rooms that we could transition to. You're in a so you're in a room, right? And then it transitions to another room. And then another room. But the decorative design of these rooms is unknown. That requires a certain amount of imagination that I do not have. So instead, I'll try to express the concept of the transitioning of rooms, right? The design is not there, neither is the wallpaper. So all you have is the concept of transition. And the image of this is a bunch of squares that are totally empty because they have no design. And you might knock on the door of one of the rooms, and you open up the door, and it's just a dining room. Because that's what we originally planned to do, was to use the dining room. And then you knock on the door of another room, and then you find that it has rugs in it. But after that, there's no more explanation on what the next room will be. So there might be a few numbers, but can you trust that the numbers will lead you, or that the screws need to be tightened before the door just is not worth your time? Now, I've checked my watch many times and found that all the symbols were backwards. And because they're backwards, I knew for that instant that these were the markings that related to the numbers on the doors of each one of these rooms. So by checking my watch, seeing all these backwards numerical symbols, and finding all these rooms that have backwards symbols on them, that indicated that that was the room that I should go through. So I did, right? I did. And inside were just more numbers because that's what's there, man. So we have all these floating numbers. You don't know which ones are right side up or anything because some are backwards. And they're floating with like this luminescent kind of purple kind of hue, right? Just like, just like these numbers that are like floating around. And at that moment, you just take a bunch of the numbers with you. So you just grab a bunch of the numbers and you walk out the door, and then you'll find that as you're walking around with these numbers that you took from one room, they actually transition you to the roof of other rooms that have places for these numbers. And what you'll find is the next room is oddly the same as the watch here, but now that's the roof of the room, which is a watch. So we gathered the numbers from one of the rooms and we brought them up to the top of the roof of the next one. And after we placed all the numbers on there, we find that they all glow a different color. So if you walk over to one of them, like the number 3 being like a blue, and it suddenly just turns into just water. The number 3 is not really number 3, it's just water. So you decide to just grab some of that water, put it in a glass, and then take that to the next room. The next room is full of is lemons. Lemons for your water. That actually, are used as glasses. So if you have a bunch of glasses that are now upside down because the water is gone, but now you have lemons, so you can go over to the lemons and then you start collecting lemons. And then you bring all those lemons back to the numbers and then find that the number 2 is lemonade. Now, you decide to get a straw and stir the lemonade. And as you're stirring the lemonade, you forgot that one of the numbers begins to actually, smoke because there's a fire in one of the numbers. The number 4 is burning. And you try to take the lemonade and put the fire out. It doesn't work. So you try to take the water, but the water's gone. And so you take all the extra numbers and you throw them into that number, which burns them all, and now you have no numbers at all. Which is really disappointing because you just gathered all those numbers and now they're gone. So the number 4 stays there. And it instantly shows you a bunch of rooms that have 4 sides. And you wonder what the other rooms would have been if the number 4 didn't burn everything else up. But you decide to go into that room. Now, the room you go into turns into an elevator, and the elevator takes you to the 2nd floor, which is also the 4th room in a stack of rooms by 4s. And the walls just seem to be not worth your time. So you leave that room and you go back down a ladder and you wonder what other rooms there might be. But that doesn't just happen automatically, because where exactly are we now? So the transition of rooms could also be various scenes, right? Yes, yet each one is not allowed to express itself because of the memorizedness of it. But if you you could say it's a frying pan, right? I mean, just basic stuff, right? And then it's a kitchen, but then what type of kitchen, right? But why? See, that's where it dead ends, because I don't want to talk about food anymore. Why not something else? But the problem is I have clients that are disabled and their whole life revolves around food, and that's why it's so prevalent in my mind all the time, because that's all they talk about. It's their whole reality. So let's leave that reality and go to one where nobody eats anything. And it's just, I was going to say pasta, right? It's just, it's a world where nobody eats anything and is instead eaten by everything else. So a place where, people would fly kites for a change because they got nothing else to do, like, what else are they going to do? Or there's melody for the sake of melody to the discernible ear. Do 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 do. Criticism. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's terrible. Don't do that. Don't do that. well, yeah, but how does the melody feel about that? Like, hey, melody, we've just decided that you're not worth our time. So then what do you do with like these other melodies that go do 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 do? And you listen to the melody, you listen to the melody. Do 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 do. And then there's um, going into the out of tune aspects of things so you can appreciate out of the performance. Like, for one, I don't know, I'm like standing like this because it helps convey something, you know. And in all expressions, you have um, the appreciation for the phenomena itself. And if you listen to the phenomena without the added agitation or contraction of the nervous system, that maybe it will speak to you. Maybe it'll allow itself to be heard, even though it's so-called terrible by the conceptual mind that says, twinkle, twinkle, little star. You know, that sounds bad. What I wonder what you are. But it has its own effect that a well-performed melody wouldn't. If I could pretend to sing well, you know, like twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. And you get lost in that exploration, you know, because if it doesn't get stuck into that idea of likes and dislikes, it's just there's so much in expressions, but then you have the audience that's like, oh, I don't like that, or you know, that not that, and then it limits all that freedom of just the exploring of the do 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 do, if that makes any sense at all. And the transitioning of the rooms, which I have no idea how to do that because my imagination won't make anything. So instead, I acknowledge the current ability of what I'm doing right now, and then that's what it is. So, yeah.